Hello, my name is Ann Spencer, and in case you haven't visited us before or listened to our series before, I'm a product person. And in a prior life, had the opportunity to meet Pete Warden when I was the data editor at O'Reilly Media. And we've had so many conversations over the past decade or so where I deeply appreciate his insights, very multifaceted, nuanced insights. And so we recently decided to record some of our conversations.
No, thanks, Anne. And I'm Pete Warden. I like to say I've been doing AI before it worked. Back in 2014, I joined Google after my startup was acquired. I became one of the founding members of TensorFlow. And I've really enjoyed talking to Anne as well over the last few years. And I love that we've got this opportunity to kind of bring in some of our friends and other people who might be interested.
Oh, for sure. For sure. And in case this is the first time people are listening and watching, so in prior episodes, we have provided a lot of contextual insights, particularly on model development, model optimization. We've also touched a bit about industry insights. And for today's episode, we're going to dive back into some industry insights, particularly with user privacy issues. Because I feel like exponentially in the past couple of weeks, there have been a lot of spotlight on things. It
Like
feels like
Apple,
a lot.
Mozilla, all of
Yeah,
these things have just been popping up.
I love having an opportunity to talk about this. And for folks who may not be aware, the reason why I want to talk to Pete about this particularly is because he has a lot of experience dealing with this, right? Yes, a lot of experience. When Pete was a researcher, right, he actually co-discovered an iPhone security flaw, right, that exposed user location data. And then on another instance, when he was working on a data aggregation project, he found himself addressing the Facebook legal team with some stuff and successfully untangled himself with the situation. Again, this is all on Pete's blog, right? Because
Yeah.
as I said before, he uses his blog as a notebook, right? So it's all there, right? I'm gonna take a moment to read one of my personal favorite quotes from his blog about user privacy. If people can indulge me for just a moment, and this is from 2009, right? And he said, I quote, "I'm still a fan of people's new freedom to trade some privacy for something they want more. But I'm acutely aware that people are carefree about that bargain because they've never been stung. A lot of people are going to get hurt before you reach a new equilibrium with widely understood ground rules for what's acceptable and safe." And again, that was from 2009, right? And so I feel like that's kind of where we're at right now, right? So I feel like you have this prophetic, like, oh, look at this, it's gonna happen.
I'd actually forgotten. Like, who's that smart guy saying that stuff?
So one of the reasons why I wanted to talk to you about this is because there have been some recent developments with class action lawsuits for user privacy and voice assistants in particular the past couple of weeks. And one of them, in case folks aren't aware, it's a federal judge has approved a preliminary settlement, which may lead Apple to pay out $95 million. And this is for allegedly, I'm going to say this allegedly, people, right? Allegedly, Apple perhaps violated privacy by activating Siri on their devices without people's knowledge and fed that information to Apple employees and to advertisers. Again, allegedly, but that was something that happened. And then the second class action lawsuit that really jumped out at me was how another judge refused Google's request to dismiss a lawsuit, right? And this was a lawsuit where, again, allegedly, Google violated the California Privacy Act, right? And particularly with the virtual agent at the Google Cloud Contact AI Center, which was collecting, using, and disclosing user audio recordings. Again, allegedly, right? But some of the things that kind of jumped out at me. I would love to hear your take, Pete, on this, with the understanding that you used to work at both those companies, right? So whatever frame or opinion you'd like to provide in terms of context, I think would be really helpful for both myself and for anyone listening.
Yeah, I'm in the awesome position of really annoying both sides of the privacy debate because I really care about protecting user privacy, but I also think there are an awful lot of conspiracy theories around. I've seen a lot of people, there's this incredibly common belief that your phone and your voice assistant is listening to you all the time. And I know at least between 2014 and 2023, when I left Google, that Google, I was part of the team working on the code that ran on the special always on chip that listened out for you saying the wake word. And so I can say definitively, hand on my heart, I spent, I was spending a lot of time with that code, and it just wasn't even technically possible
Mm-hmm.
for us to be listening all the time because the battery would have just drained, and that would have been super obvious. And I've seen a lot of people um, claiming that the Apple settlement proves that Apple was deliberately listening and sharing stuff with advertisers. Um, what I think is much more likely is the listening out for Siri
Mm-hmm.
as a wake word. Um, there's going to be some false positives where it thinks you've said that wake word in a regular conversation, and so they're going to have recorded inadvertently some, you know, and sent it to the cloud, some speech that they shouldn't have. Um, but you notice on your phone because, you know, Siri comes up,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know. Um, but I do think that that means that they're aware that they have some liability
Mm-hmm.
for that. But the idea that there's a policy and that they're sharing with advertisers of this
Mm-hmm.
information, I think is I really I know for sure that it wasn't happening at Google from
Mm-hmm.
2014 to 2023, and I strongly suspect, for a lot of the same reasons, that Apple is not doing that. And honestly, they don't need voice information to do a good job at, you know, telling advertisers or customizing your search results. I know most of us have had the experience of talking about something and then seeing it in your ads or seeing it in your search results. Um, but the sad news is that uh, we're all pretty predictable. So there are lots of other signals that, you know, maybe the friend you were talking to did some Google searching on that topic, and you know the data is smart enough to know that you're a close friend of that person, so
Mm-hmm.
they're gonna, you know, populate your search results with that. um so yeah, I, as far as Apple settling, I really wouldn't read too much into that other than $95 million is, you know, loose change.
Yeah. So do you think that users actually care, or do you think this is just lawyers bringing up class action lawsuits? Like, what do you think of, right?
Yeah, and I think it's I think what happens is, as apps and companies chip away at their privacy policies,
Mhm,
um, and you know, kind of hand over more and more data to
mhm,
advertisers and their internal teams for other products, um, they don't see their metrics go down, you
right,
know, and but the response by users is very non-linear because
mhm,
users gradually get fed up, but they don't have a good alternative, and then
right,
an alternative appears, and they actually, you know, that's the point where there's suddenly a drop in kind of user engagement with the old system, because you've got a lot of, you know, and this applies to more than just privacy. um, I hate the word, but I love Cory Doctorow's concept of inshitification.
yeah, for
You
sure,
know,
right, yeah,
um, and the other thing is these conspiracy theories flourish because there's no way to verify any of the company's claims. The
Mm-hmm.
companies are just saying, trust us, which, back in the golden days of 2009, um, every tech companies had this honeymoon where
Mm-hmm.
people were so excited by all the cool new things that they were doing, the fact they were getting them for free, that nobody, uh, people were prepared to trust tech companies. But we've seen enough examples of tech companies abusing that trust, repeatedly, that I think a lot of people don't want, fundamentally don't trust these companies. And there's no way to verify any of these companies' claims as a third party.
Mm-hmm.
Apple can say they're not recording your voice at times they shouldn't be, but there's no way for kind of an independent research or even like a government regulator to determine that, because once stuff goes into the cloud really is just this tangle of servers all talking to each other and sharing data, and it changes, almost every minute. The configuration, something new is getting added there. Um, Actually trying to audit that is just not, just not possible. So that's one of the reasons why I really believe in the on-device
Mm-hmm.
approach, because then third parties can actually um, check your claims, and you don't have to just trust the tech company. You've got more trustworthy people that you can turn to.
That's definitely giving me a lot of food for thought, because when you talked about the access with the cloud, one of the things that also happened in the last couple of weeks is that Apple is actually battling the UK, right? Because the UK wants backdoor access to iCloud, right?
Yeah.
And Apple's like, no.
Yeah.
So there's like a, so I think that's also kind of spinning in my head about when you were talking about that, right? Also, I kind of wonder if there is a sort of shifting in perspectives about trust, because I mean Mozilla is used to having a lot of trust, right? And so I was really shocked personally when there was the change to their terms of service and there was so much backlash, right? It wasn't like, when I was looking at it from the outside, I'm like, wow, this isn't coming from a place of assuming that, best intentions. This was coming from a very different place.
Yeah.
I was like,
Yeah.
I don't know
People
if,
people are pissed, and
yeah, like I
rightfully
don't,
so.
I don't know, but like, I mean, what do you think about that? Like, it sounds like very much related to what you were saying earlier about trust, right, and verification, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like, at the moment, the way that all of our tech stacks are set up, like everything is within the firewall of the company, and with these massive companies, as soon as data leaves your device, it's really hard to know what happens to it. And I like the saying, I'm trying to remember exactly how it goes, but the best way of protecting data is by not collecting it. So
Yeah,
if you
yeah.
actually have an on-device solution, I know that's my, my obsession, but I just love the properties of on-device solutions where you can verify that data never gets stored. That data goes away as soon as, you finished your conversation. Nobody can access it. Not the government, not the company, not malicious actors like hackers. I just think that it makes it such a simpler thing to verify by
Right.
users as well as everyone else.
For sure. So this has been a fascinating conversation. I think I could actually talk to you about this for hours and hours. But we're almost at time. So is there any last words that you have before we sign off or anything? Again, I could talk to you about this forever, I feel like.
Yeah, me too. I can ramble for a long time. But yeah, no last words. Thanks so much, Anne, for this. As always, this is a great conversation, and
Oh,
thanks
yeah.
everyone for listening.
Yep. Thank you everyone for listening. And again, thank you, Pete, because definitely lots of food for thought. Right. Right. Until next time. Okay. Bye.
Bye, everyone.